let's talk about a movie about a horny vampire. And surprisingly, this movie is not Twilight. But first, a brief history lesson. At Germany 1920s, the country just lost World War I and everyone was poor as hell. A young director, Friedrich Murnau, really wants to adapt Bram Stoker's Dracula. However, the production company Prana Film doesn't want to pay money to license Dracula due to, obviously, being broke as hell. So they just come up with the most genius decision ever. They make an unauthorized adaptation of Dracula, and they call it Nosferatu. Nosferatu is basically Dracula, but under a different name. And the Germans really thought nobody would find out what they did. However, Bram Stoker's wife eventually found out and ordered the copies of Nosferatu to be completely destroyed. That's kind of awkward. Imagine you make a movie of your dream, but then you have to destroy it because your country is broke and your company couldn't license a book. That's why you shouldn't start wars, probably. Nonetheless, the movie survived and eventually became a horror classic. I first read about this film in a newspaper, believe me or not. That was a long time ago. And this picture was literally haunting me. Not because it looked scary, but because the newspaper claimed that the actor who played Count Orlok, Max Schreck, really looked like this in real life. But turns out the newspaper was a fine example of yellow journalism and Max Schreck didn't look like a freaking vampire. Or did he? Anyway, I recently watched this film for the first time and it was a fascinating experience. Max Schreck as Count Orlok looks amazingly terrifying in the film. I could probably watch the full movie where the camera is just fixed on him from the beginning till the end. One of the most captivating performances I've seen. And the remake directed by Robert Eggers also turned out to be great. I think it might be my favorite film of 2024. If not my favorite movie, then at least it's my favorite theatrical experience. The movie is made to be enjoyed on the big screen. I was wondering why Robert Eggers couldn't just adapt Dracula instead of making a remake of an unlicensed version of Dracula. Turns out Eggers really loved Nosferatu as a kid, so this movie was his passion project for a very long time. I'm honestly not really sure which Nosferatu I prefer. They are different in significant ways. First, the tone. The original is much more light-hearted compared to the remake. For example, Hutter, the main character, feels really confident and he is happy about the opportunity to visit Count Orlok despite all the warnings from the locals, which he idly laughs at. Meanwhile, Nicholas Holt's Hutter is really terrified of going to Orlok's mansion. He is in doubt about meeting the Count and wants to finish business as soon as possible. The atmosphere of the film is fantastic. It envelopes you from the start. The movie just keeps you extremely uncomfortable until the end, almost as uncomfortable as the main character himself feels. In the original film, Hutter is greeted by shining landscapes of Transylvania, but in the remake, it's constantly snowing. It's constantly dark, gloomy and cheerless. There's almost no sun in the whole movie. It is really dark even during daylight scenes. Inside Count's castle, it's hard to see anything, because the only source of light are candles and moonlight. We don't even see Count's face, it's covered by shadows. This works perfectly for the atmosphere, because it keeps us as confused, as puzzled as the main character. For comparison, we do see Count's face in the original movie, before we realize he's a vampire. After the first meeting with Orlok in the remake, we, just like the main character, just wanna leave the castle immediately without returning. The work with sound is great too, and you can hear every single sound, like the creaking of the door or neighing of horses in the distance. So I would definitely recommend watching this film in IMAX with the best audio system possible, if not for sound design, but at least to listen to Bill Skarsgård's voice. Seriously, Bill Skarsgård was fantastic as Count Orlok. I can listen to Orlok's voice all day long, I'm not kidding.
It is a black omen to journey in poor health.
I really couldn't tell that it was Bill Skarsgård, a completely transformative performance. And his look is also great, although here I certainly prefer the original. Max Schreck did look absolutely uncanny and diabolical. It's really hard to match this level of uncanniness and eeriness. Skarsgård should get an Oscar nomination for his voice in this movie alone. I think such a performance certainly deserves a nomination, even if the Academy doesn't appreciate the horror genre. Anyway, it is a very good movie. I'm hesitant about my favorite film of the year. It's probably The Substance. It was a great body horror film, but again, Nosferatu is certainly the best theatrical experience of all of 2024. Now I really do regret that I didn't get to watch The Lighthouse in the theater when it was released in 2019. I had a pretty damn good Christmas holiday season. First I watched Since episode of Hello Boss, then I watched Nosferatu. You know, the most wholesome family fun ever.